take the opportunity to introduce to you our CEO and founder of American Business Systems. Patrick is not only the CEO and the author, CEO and founder of American Business Systems, but he is also an author of several books, working on some new ones, actually working on one that he might even talk about with Dr. Rackner here in just a moment. But he's a published author. You can find any of these books on Amazon.com. You can actually contact us. We can certainly get you a copy of those. We would love to be able to get a real copy of these books in your hands. So, find out how we might be able to do that. We can see if we can get some order for you and get those shipped to you. Folks, also, he is on the editorial board at the Billing and Coding magazine, as you can see here. One of his latest magazine articles that he's written here for the Billing and Coding magazine. This is a magazine that actually goes out to hundreds of medical billing companies, not just American Business Systems medical billing companies, but literally hundreds of medical billing companies here. So we are sought after here in the field of medical billing by those that are in the professional world, such as the Billing and Coding magazine, and Patrick is one of their featured authors there, and he's actually working on a new one. So Patrick, without any further delay, let's bring you on the camera here, and then let's get set up to get ready to go here with Dr. Rackner. So good to have you here, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I appreciate that. I know that you're broadcasting there live from the actual hotel where we do the training.
That's correct.
I'm at our offices today, which is rare because I usually work out of my home office, but I'm thrilled to have Dr. Rackner down here with us this week to kind of get our association with her kicked off. She just did a tremendous job of introducing the subject of marketing to the licensees that are here in our training class, and they are bouncing off the walls, aren't they, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. I think she left them speechless. Actually, they did not know the full potential of what they're able and capable of doing with these doctors. Amazing.
Yeah, it was, and I am so grateful to know Dr. Rackner. I think we have a little slide, do we, Eric, of
absolutely,
or maybe some of her stuff there. But let me just tell you a little bit about her so that you know who you're actually listening to today, guys. I'm going to be asking her some questions. She's a former surgeon and a nationally noted expert on physician engagement. Don't you love that phrase, Eric? Physician.
Exactly.
She basically helps other businessmen and professionals to acquire physician clients in the financial world and other niches. And so we've engaged with her to be our exclusive marketing magician, I guess you'd call it, expert, for reaching out for medical billing companies to engage with doctors. After treating tens of thousands of patients in her own private practice over her medical career, and at the same time, by the way, holding a clinical faculty appointment at the University of Washington School of Medicine, she left the operating room to start working with business people, like I said, stakeholders in the medical field, to partner more effectively. You may have seen her quoted in the Wall Street Journal, on CNN, or in the Washington Post, to name a few periodicals that have quoted her. You may have heard her interviewed on NPR, or you may have read some of her books that are there on the screen. Either way, take out your pens because, guys, you're going to be able to hear some terrific information now from an actual doctor who talks to us face-to-face here, heart-to-heart, about how to engage with physicians as clients. So let's see if we can get Vicki on the line here and maybe get her live with us today.
Hello.
Ah! She's actually like 2 offices down from me, but we decided to do this at 2 different computers so we'd look like we're looking at one another, otherwise we'd be kind of looking at each other. Okay, so Vicki, thanks again so much for just taking the time to come down here.
Well, it's my pleasure, and one of the reasons that I was willing to come down is I know, Patrick, that doctors are in pain right now, and they need you.
That's true.
So I'm here to help doctors thrive in the era of Obamacare to achieve the personal and professional and financial rewards that attracted them to a career in medicine. And they need strategic partners to do that. And getting to know you, it is really my great delight to be able to facilitate, your licensees being able to engage the physicians who so desperately need them right now. So it's really my pleasure.
Well, why don't you start by just explaining to people, we put the title up at the beginning here of Saving Private Practices. And when I first heard this from you on the phone a few weeks back, I just thought that's exactly what our licensees do.
Well, everyone reads the newspaper, and they know that Obamacare means some big changes. What people might not know is how profoundly Obamacare is impacting practicing physicians. And when I say Obamacare, I don't mean to imply a value. I mean, I value the fact that we've got a system in place to ensure all Americans. I think I want to live in a nation where all Americans have access to health care.
No,
Here's the rub, though. The rub is it's very expensive. It's going to cost up to $2.6 trillion to implement Obamacare. And that's just giving everyone access to health care. That's not paying for health care. And how is this going to be paid? Well, it'll be paid with taxes. Physicians are among the high earners. They're going to feel added taxes. Right. The businesses who are their suppliers are going to be raising costs, so they've got rising costs of conducting business. But really the major way we're going to pay for Obamacare is by lowering doctors' fees. So here are these really hard-working doctors who, by the way, may be brilliant when they take care of patients, but aren't so brilliant when it comes to running a practice or managing their money. So we're seeing their costs go up, their fees going down, and they are being squeezed financially from both ends. And, you know, I'm a boomer. I really valued being in private practice. That's my temperament. I don't want to be working with, I don't want to be an employee. I want to be my own boss. And many physicians see that they've got to do something differently. And the difference that they're considering is selling their practice to the hospitals and clinics. It's not what they want to do. I'm so grateful for your services, and I know that your services have made the difference for doctors who were wondering, what's next? Am I going to be forced to sell my practice to the hospital? You offer them the option of doing what they truly love to do in the work environment that they want to do it in. So it's my pleasure to come out and do everything I can to support your initiatives, because it's so important. I mean, it's great that a licensee can have this great business at home, but I see a higher calling too. I see that you're offering a very important solution and an important service that's going to serve our entire nation. And I know that sounds grandiose, but it's just the truth.
Well, if it helps the community by keeping doctors in practice, obviously we're going to have a doctor shortage. That's the prediction, 140,000 less doctors within the next few years. So that means we need to keep those doctors, as many as possible, out there helping the people in their community and staying in practice.
Plus, consider this. Every time a doctor decides not to retire, they decide to stay in private practice, they're generating more revenue that can get invested in the community. So as we look at our big global financial picture, I wonder, is our recovery going to come from the top down, or is it going to come from a successful licensee helping a doctor do what the doctor loves so that they can be successful, pour more money in the community, hire more people? I have a sense that our recovery is going to come from the bottom up.
Yeah, I do too. I'm glad to hear that from you. And hey, I'm also glad to hear you say a while ago that doctors are not necessarily the most astute business people in the world. We say that. We know that's true because we deal with them on a regular basis through our licensing. But to hear another doctor say that, it's all on you now. So Vicki, help the listeners to actually get inside the head of the physician. Why is it that many doctors don't seem to know how to manage their revenue cycle and manage their practice and make it profitable?
Great question, and there are a number of reasons, but I just want to underscore the truth of what you just said. So for doctors, money is the ultimate taboo topic. I remember I was at the end of my surgical residency. My then husband had owned a small business, and I had this wave of insight. Oh my goodness, opening a practice means opening a small business. What do I know about running a business? And one of my surgical mentors just said to me, well, you know how to balance a checkbook, right? You should be fine running your own practice. So it's one of these things that I was in a situation I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. I thought, you know, if I just took good care of patients, the practice would take care of itself. And there may have been a time that that was true, but that's not the time right now. So I actually discovered how little I knew about money and about running a business when I made a transition from being a practicing surgeon to being an author and speaker and consultant. So I didn't generate my fees from the insurance companies. I ran a business, and my buyers were the people who supported me. And knowing how to be a good doctor and knowing how to run a successful business, they're two different things.
Yeah, I agree. That's been our experience, at least, with you know, literally hundreds of people from coast to coast that are doing this billing for doctors. They keep coming back to us like they're shocked when they find that out there, when we told them that in the training class, you know. So, well, I know you said that this is the right time and the right place, and that if you have the right message, that this is the time to mine the, how do you put it, the treasures that are out there in the medical market. Why is that?
Well, it's because doctors have a lot of pain. So, Patrick, if we look at the relationship that doctors have with their money, we know that half of doctors, for example, are behind in retirement planning, okay? But that's tomorrow. That's a distance away. Obamacare is a pain that's right now, it's sharp, it's acute pain. Doctors have to make a choice right now. The status quo is not working anymore. They've got to do something different. It's sort of like, you know, you may think, oh, I should go to the dentist one day and have this cavity replaced. But if you've got a tooth abscess and it's hurting, you take action today. I'm here to tell the people on this line, for doctors, they're having acute financial pain today. They're deciding today what their future is going to be. And if you are there helping them get what they really want, and another thing, Patrick, that we talked about is that doctors really treat their practice kind of like their children. I mean, it's not a business entity. They have an emotional connection to their practice. They'll do anything for their practice. If you are there helping doctors do what they want, which is nurture their practice, you are golden. And this is the time. I mean, 5 years ago, the picture was different. You could create an argument that said, look, doctor, you would be better off if you had this done. Like, you would be better off if you got this filling replaced. It hurts today. That's why this is the time.
So what do you mean when you say, I know I've read in some of your materials, that the physician's pain is your business opportunity. How does that relate to doctors outsourcing their billing?
So I am a physician myself. I ran a private practice, and I always knew, obviously, that the billing was sort of my scorecard that showed me how well I was doing, and it was also the source of revenue. So, you know, when I go to a baseball game, I like to keep score on the score sheet, and the way I saw it, my biller kind of helped me keep score. And you win at the game by paying attention to the play-by-plays. So, you know, if you want to win, work with a partner who's going to help you understand what winning really means, where the big plays are. I mean, right now, I've spoken with doctors who are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars just by not billing right. You know, if you're going to reinvent yourself and really think about a strategy for thriving in this era of Obamacare, do the easy things first. The easy thing is, you know, shore up the holes that, you know, your revenue is leaking through. And the best way to do that is to just go with a proven system with people who are experts in it. And doctors understand this idea of experts. If patients have really bad problems, doctors will refer those patients to the experts who do nothing but deal with that problem. So here we have doctors. They've got an acute problem, and you're the most logical, somebody who does billing is the obvious first expert to turn to.
Yeah, I've heard you say many times that doctors want to work with the experts that are out there, and all of us do. I mean, when I'm looking for a financial advisor, I want somebody who's an expert, not my brother-in-law. You know, he may be a financial advisor, but you know, I want to work with somebody that knows what they're doing. Same way when I go to a doctor, I want the specialist that I think can solve whatever the problem is.
Absolutely. And you know, if a doctor has a plan that's not working very well, doctors are creatures of habit. They're a little slow. But if the pain is bad enough, they're willing to look at a different plan. Just like if your physical pain is bad enough, you're willing to look at a different medical plan. And we are here right now. So whatever a doctor is doing, they're looking around and saying, is it time for a change? Is this really serving me? Or is it time to do things a little differently?
Yeah, now when it comes to actually marketing billing services to doctors and showing them the advantages of outsourcing their billing, what do you mean by this term that I've heard you use, physician's triage? Can you kind of explain that term to us and what you mean by that?
Sure. So a triage comes from a French word which means to sort. And this idea has its origin in a doctor's response to the battlefield. There are some people who are going to survive no matter what you do, some people who will not survive no matter what you do, and a group of people that will survive depending on the level of engagement at that moment. So doctors are able to look at a situation and decide what needs my attention right now. And right now, an Obamacare solution is something that's at the top of doctors' lists. Because if you're looking at, spending $50,000 to $100,000 to be compliant with the kind of infrastructure that's going to support the economies of scale for Obamacare, and one day you come into the office and your salary has been cut in third, and that's what doctors are literally looking at. With an act of Congress, the amount that they will get compensated by Medicare is going to be 2/3 what it was the day before, and then other insurance companies will follow that. That grabs doctors' attention. That's the top of the list. So, Patrick, you are a solution to the most pressing problem that physicians have right now.
Cash flow, I take it, right? I mean,
It's cash flow, absolutely. It's how am I going to remain viable? I know that there are these ideas, there's this myth of the rich doctor. And some doctors truly are wealthy. But there are doctors who run amazing practices who are losing money. Or they've connected with somebody who's fraudulent, who might be stealing from them. So with this wake-up call, I think all doctors are taking a look and saying, hey, am I going to want to change course? What do I want to do differently? And of course, we have a natural tendency to look for the easy solutions first. I mean, there are some big changes that doctors can decide on. Maybe they want to convert to a concierge practice or an all-cash practice, but that's a big deal. What's much more manageable is helping them make their billing work better. Just that single intervention alone could make the difference to an individual doctor being able to stay in private practice or deciding, I'm going to retire or I'm going to sell my practice to the hospital or clinic. And doctors who are in private practice are there for a reason. It's because they want to be there. That is the environment in which they thrive. And let's all get together and help doctors do what they really love to do. Let's have everybody be in a work environment in which they thrive and they're able to give their best.
Yeah, I like that because that gives really our company a focus and our licensees that it's a much bigger purpose than just going out and doing the billing for doctors. It's saving the private practice in that those doctors now don't have to accept some offer from a hospital to go to work for them and become, an employee, basically, punching the clock.
Right. So in the training session, we talked about how licensees really are the doctor's doctor. Doctors are in pain right now. The pain is financial. You have the solution. So it's great that you can support your family doing this, but it really is part of something bigger. We've got a huge systems problem with Obamacare and healthcare delivery. We have a huge morale problem among physicians, to be quite honest. Physicians are scared. They are experiencing despair. They sort of feel like they've been painted into a corner. And what if if you're listening to this webinar, what if you could be part of a really big solution that could literally change our world? How would that feel for you if you knew that you were making a difference, not just for your family, but for your entire community. And you were making a contribution to global financial recovery. This is big. This is really big. I know that you're making a business choice right now, a concrete business choice. And I'm here to tell you that you have the opportunity to do well by doing good. And there aren't a lot of opportunities out there like that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I've never heard it put that way. And we tell people all the time that this is a business that is of service to the doctors and the community, but it really turns out to be a win-win-win situation. It's a win for the licensee because they can make a very nice executive income doing these services for doctors, but it's a win for the doctor and for the community, the patients in the community. So
and that's what business is all about, isn't it? A win all around.
Right. Now, I know when you were in private practice, I think you said that you started out by getting a referral from a doctor that you respected on who should do your billing, and you started outsourcing from the very beginning. Is that right?
I did. You know, so I was just fresh out of residency. I was, you know, I would spend 80 to 120 hours a week just learning how to take good care of patients. So who had time to think about how to set up a practice? So I just went to people that I knew and trusted and said, okay, what do I need to do? Oh, you need to get medical malpractice insurance. You need to get disability insurance. You need to get somebody to do your billing. And I chose my biller just on the basis of a recommendation from somebody I knew and trusted. I had decided to hire this woman before I even met her on the phone because the power of that referral was so strong. So something that you might want to know about physicians as a buyer is that they tend to be a really good group to sell to. And the reason is that they're loyal customers, so you don't really have to worry about retention. But the thing is that once you become recognized as somebody who does a good job, word about you will spread. So you don't have to sell you.
No.
Other doctors will help get your word about you around. And there tends to be this organic growth after you get your first, second, third client. So that is really beautiful that you don't have to be going out and making the first sale every day. Once you start it's like once you get the kindling on fire, you can get the bonfire going.
Yeah, we've had licensees tell us that they just did what we teach them to do in this live training workshop. We go through about a dozen different ways to market to doctors, and after they got their first doctor, they did a good job for them. They did what we teach them to do to get those referrals from that doctor to the doctors that they know, and all of a sudden their business just grows, like you said, organically. There's not much marketing to do after that first one. Of course, that's the biggest fear everybody has in any business is how do I get the business up and running? How do I get started? But like you taught today, reaching out just to the people that they know, people can connect. Everybody knows a doctor, right? And maybe a doctor in trouble.
So almost everything that I teach is a solution to a problem that I myself experienced. And as a doctor, I wasn't very good at selling. I resisted selling. I didn't want to do it. I had this image of a snake oil salesperson.
Nobody wants to sell, really. It's crucial to any business.
It really is. So I remember running into a very wise person who said, you know, selling is really serving. And so I have built businesses based on this idea that you can build relationships by delivering value. So I remember there was this man at the grocery store where I often would check out. And he was always my favorite. I always used to love going in his line. And when I got in his line, it was really slow. And I was looking up to see what was happening, and there were all these people coming and hugging him and saying nice things to him. And by the time I got to the front of the line, I said, it looks like you're really well loved. He said, you know, I've been here 25 years. Today's my last day. And I said, what's the secret to being so well loved? He said, I'll tell you. Every morning I wake up with a single idea. Every person who meets me today is just going to be a little better off because I interacted with them. And after doing that for 25 years, look where it got him. And I decided I might not want to sell, but I know I can make somebody a little better off with each interaction. And I believe that that really is a successful way of building a business. I think that if you just go to people who already know you and like you and trust you and say something like, look, guys, you read the newspaper. You have physicians in your social circles. You know they're really challenged. I am so excited because I am helping doctors stay in their private practice. And if you care about a doctor and you know the doctor is struggling, of course you're going to introduce these two resources to be able to help somebody that you care about. So part of the beauty of your system, Patrick, is this idea that they will be able to go out and you give them things that doctors want so that they can be gracious. They can sort of launch this conspiracy of service and invite people who already know and like and trust them into the conspiracy. It's about as hard as falling off a log. If you care about something, there's a way I can help them. Here, give it to them for free.
Yeah. It
doesn't get much easier than that.
Oh, it doesn't. Now, I've got a question here that's come in from one of our listeners. I'm going to share this with you, Vicki. It says, this is from Carol. She says, at what rate, Dr. Rackner, are doctors selling their practices back to the hospitals? I heard that they were doing this at an alarming rate. Is this true? I know they're joining larger groups to share overhead and other expenses.
Yes. Okay, so I'd be happy to give you the national numbers, but just know that there are regional variations. So what's happening in your town might be different. So when I was going to medical school in the 80s, about 80% of doctors were in private practice. After managed care in the 90s, that number dropped down to about 50%. Right now, nationally, it's at about 40%, and it's expected that within 1 to 3 years, that number could go down to 1 in 3 doctors. However, that's plotting a course where everything just continues on its current course. But I think you can be the change agent. If you show doctors how easy it is to remain profitable in private practice, every doctor in private practice would want to do that. So you could be the person who really changes this for your doctor clients and for your community.
Well, and it's such a huge market if you think about it. Almost 1 million physicians in the United States, and even if a third of those were still your prospects, you've got a wide market. I believe there'll always be some market for medical billing because doctors have to get paid somehow. Somebody has to bill somebody to get the doctor paid, and those doctors don't need to be doing it themselves, obviously. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Rackner? I mean, a doctor, obviously, some of them do their own billing, and they have their own staff, their own software, and they pay an IT guy and all kinds of things. Why would a doctor choose to do that over, like you said, outsourcing it to an expert?
Control. They want to have control over things. They might have heard a story about the office manager who's embezzled money, and they think, you know what, I'm just going to avoid that problem and be in control. And Patrick, I just want to get back to a question that Carol asked that you just commented about. So, you talk about 1 in 3 physicians being in private practice. If nobody has the yellow pages anymore, but if you would Google, say, orthopedic surgeons and your town, you are probably going to come up with hundreds and hundreds of orthopedic surgeons. So that number really does not truly reflect the opportunities in your local market. Unless you live out in, rural Wyoming, and I don't know how many people are practicing there, but if you're living in a metropolitan area, there are plenty of opportunities, because let me tell you something. We can characterize this problem, but there are very few people out there with solutions other than doctor, just sell your practice or retire. Yeah. You could be the person there delivering hope, and you could be the only one in your community who's really offering a hopeful message. There really is an option here.
So kind of expound on that just a little bit, Vicki. I know that there are doctors who want that control. They're going to keep that inside their office no matter what, even if they're losing money, I guess. But isn't it just an educational process of educating those doctors to the advantages of outsourcing? It always is cheaper. I know that, but some of them don't know that even.
Right. So if I were purchasing, if I were a licensee, what I would do is I would go out and tell lots of stories. So if you meet with a doctor and you find out that a doctor is, hiring his wife to do it, or his wife volunteered to do it because they have control, you can tell stories like, you know what? You are not alone. There are other doctors who felt similar. Let me tell you the story of Dr. Maxwell, who did just that. His wife was great. She had run a boutique. She really understood businesses. And they thought they were doing okay until they took a very serious look. And they found that they were losing a lot of money. They just thought it was regular business losses. That, everyone knows their business losses. But he had the courage to give something else a try. And if you talk to him today, he'll say that this is the thing that turned around his practice. So telling stories about doctors in a similar situation is probably the best way of inspiring them to action, because the most influential person in a doctor's life is another doctor.
Interesting you say that, because being the nation's largest network of independent medical billing companies, we have those stories. We have many of those stories that we can share. And as people join us and open up local offices, so to speak, of our network, they can use those stories because that's a part of what our history is. And let me ask you this. Doctors who want to, I think Carol has continued on her question here. She said something about, I heard that the hospitals were taking over the billing for the smaller offices out there. Have you heard, in your experience, have you heard of doctors who went to work for hospitals and then decided to get back into practice?
Absolutely. We saw that in the 90s, and we're seeing that now. Physicians who want to be in private practice really feel like this is emotionally selling out when they have to go and sell their practice. It's sort of like, deciding you're going to give your kid up for adoption.
Right.
It feels really bad. There's a profound sense of loss. And if you can offer the solution, what do doctors need in order to maintain their private practice? They need to be profitable. And part of the reason that they sell their practices to the hospital is for financial security. They've got a secure income. Somebody's going to take care of their expenses. But if you can show doctors how they can maintain their autonomy and be profitable at the same time, that's really what they want. And remember, business success is all about helping people get what they want.
Yeah, they want the same thing that the folks on this webinar today want, and that's to have their own business, to have control over their own life, to take off when they want to manage their own income and not put limits on it. I think going to work for a hospital, they become clock punching employees, basically. They have to work the hours that the hospital says they have to work. They are limited. I think their initial contracts are maybe for like 3 years, and they base their pay to that doctor on what their previous income was. Were you telling me that they look at their previous income and say, okay, you averaged $80,000 a year or whatever, and they pay the doctor that, but then when that contract expires, they can renegotiate that for a lower fee. It's kind of like a bait and switch, isn't it?
It is like a bait and switch, and that's the experience of many physicians who sell. Now, for the right physician, this is a great move. And if somebody wants that financial security and they want to be an employee with the kind of freedom that brings with it, great. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody who really wants to maintain their autonomy, and they feel like they can't because they lack choices. That's a scarcity mindset. Yeah. And there's plenty of abundance. There's plenty of ideas that doctors just haven't been exposed to yet that will help them get the personal, professional, and financial rewards that drew them to a career in medicine. Taking care of the billing is the easy first step. And let me also speak to doctors' sense of control. What doctors really want is to be in control of their financial destiny. And as a smart business person, you know, because you're wired like a business person, that you want to make rational choices based on the data. You want to take a look at your results. You want to figure out where you're profitable. You want to figure out where you might be losing money. I knew, for example, that every time I took a Medicaid patient, I was losing money. So doctors' ability to mine the data and interpret the data, not just do the billing, but really take a snapshot of their practice, kind of like the baseball scorecard, those are the doctors that are in control. So you can just reframe the way that doctors think about control and help them get what they want.
Yeah, I guess if I were a doctor, I would look at my office situation if I was doing the billing internally. And I would say, you know, I've got all these different people, maybe one or two people that are dedicated to the billing. If I could free those people up and reallocate their time, though, I could see more patients. And wouldn't that increase their revenue if they could do that? I think doctors think that billing costs more to outsource than it really does.
That may well be true, Patrick, but I bet there's a lot of doctors out there. See, what you just said was with a business mind. And remember, doctors are wired differently than business-minded people, okay?
Yeah.
So they're not thinking with the business logic that you're blessed with. What they're probably thinking about is, oh my God, am I being robbed here? Yeah. And that might be the thing that inspires them to change, because every doctor knows a story about fraud, about something bad happening because there weren't checks and balances.
Well, and we teach our licensees that the national average out there is going to run anywhere from 5-6% up to 8 or 9%, depending on the doctor, the specialty, and the volume, and so forth. So for a doctor to think, give up 7% of my revenue to somebody who's just doing the billing, they probably think it only costs them $1 or $2 per claim to file, when it's really, I think it averages about $20 a claim inside the doctor's office to file those claims.
So what I would recommend, if you really want to speak with doctors and resonate with them, is, hey, look, doctor, how are you doing financially right now? How's this working for you? And how could it be if we really got this billing and collections down? What if you really got paid what you deserve to get paid? How different would your life be? So I would hook into the dream. How's this really working for you? That's kind of a tough thing to ask. But what if it were really working well? What would you be willing to do to have true financial security, to be excited to go to work in the morning instead of worried about how you're going to pay your mortgage? This is transformational for doctors.
Yes, and they outsource a lot of things, don't they? I mean, they know that giving things over to an expert like a CPA to keep their taxes in line, and maybe a payroll service to pay their payroll, and an attorney to handle their legal matters. Those are all outsourced solutions, and they know they should have the experts do that. Why do they think, some of them, that they are experts themselves in billing, when probably the person who's doing the billing just learned it from the person who was there before them,
I hear what you're saying, and I think this brings up another really important point. And that's that once you are the expert, you don't have to take on any client. If you've got a control freak and you don't want to work with a control freak, there are plenty of other nice doctors that are going to value you. You do not have to take all comers. This kind of client seems like a nightmare client. And I'll tell you, as I got more mature as a surgeon in my medical practice, I decided there were certain kinds of people I just simply did not want to work with. There are enough nice people out there. If they're challenging prospects like this, just go on to the next one. There's plenty more.
Well, that kind of relates to a question here by Jerry. He says, doctors are busy people. How do you break the ice to get their attention so that you can demonstrate even how to help them? A lot of people.
Build relationships by offering value. Give them just like the free sample at the grocery store. Give them something that's going to make them just a little better off. Because people pay for transformations. They pay to get from point A to point B. So if you can offer them something free to give them a little taste of the kind of transformation that you bring, and do this on a regular basis, you will build trust. They'll look forward to getting something from you. I've heard about like really wild and crazy campaigns where people were sending things to doctors anonymously every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and the doctors couldn't wait to see what's next. Well, you don't have to do anything fancy like that. But if they know that when they open an email or get a video or get something in the mail from you, and it's something that immediately improves their condition, that's a great way of building trust. I kind of think of marketing materials like a hostess gift. If you're invited somewhere out to dinner, you could bring your photo album from your vacation plans. But no, you don't do that because that's not going to improve the condition of the host. So a lot of conventional marketing is like this vacation photo album. It's all about me, and I can tell you that people who are most successful in engaging doctors and who are selling to doctors put the doctor in the limelight. So when I think about an individual relationship, a touch point, I think about this happening on a New York stage. So there's one seat in the limelight, and there's lots of room in the audience. And you get to decide who's in the limelight. Are you shining the light on you, or are you putting the doctor, your prospect, your client in the limelight and talking about them and their condition? So if you focus on the doctor prospect, if you really focus on helping understand what kind of transformation they want, where their pain is, what they want, and where they'd like to get to, and you help them get there, it will naturally express an interest in you.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier providing something of value to them. It can be a very simple thing, and yet most people, when they approach doctors, they're not trying to give them something. They're trying to get something from them. You are developing a book for our licensees that helps doctors to get patients. There's a perfect.
Right. Exactly. And when I say deliver value, it doesn't need to be really fancy. So let me just give you an example. I love eating pomegranates, but it's such a mess. Like there's red everywhere. Well, I heard this little tip. If you just immerse the pomegranate in water, in cold water, you can do it, and, no fuss. Well, I love pomegranate. That one little tip was great. So when I talk about delivering value, it's like one little idea. Like, how do you ask your patient for a copay? How do you manage that? Just like one little thing can really change a doctor's life. You do that kind of thing on a regular basis. If you're talking with your existing clients and they offer a great idea, you say, wow, that's such a great idea. May I share that idea with other doctors? And of course, I'd attribute that to you. Well, gee, now you're telling the story of another doctor sharing best practices. You're the kind of guy who's rubbing elbows with the key physician leaders. That matters to doctors. These little teeny things quickly make a big difference. And like I said, it gets the kindling going to get the bonfire started.
So just addressing Jerry's question here, basically, that's not something we can cover in just this one short interview with Dr. Rackner, but she has a whole lot of specific ideas as to how to break that ice and get through to the doctor. And that's part of why people join us as an organization, because it's hard to come up with that kind of stuff on your own. And to have a doctor who's actually developed that material, to me, is just invaluable.
And here's the deal. So everyone's facing the same challenge, right? What if you're the guy who knows how to get past the gatekeeper? You're the guy who has the key, because doctors have this pain, they have this need. Somehow or another, this is going to be resolved. And you are the person who has the competitive edge at really know how doctors think and how to meet doctors, how to get in front of prospects. And Patrick, you're absolutely right. We have concrete things that work, an action plan with verbs in them. So we will show you exactly what to do. And these things do work.
Yeah, and even though as an organization we've been teaching people methods to get through to the doctor on a regular basis for the last 20 years, when I read some of your stuff, I thought, okay, this is what we should have been teaching all along, because again, you know how the doctor thinks in their head. I know how to kind of get through to them, but boy, getting inside the mind of a doctor, I think that's an important part of understanding the principles of getting to them.
Well, thank you, Patrick. That's really kind. And what I invite people on the line to think about is if you were traveling to Europe or to China, you would want to know how that thing goes. I remember when I was visiting China, soup was the last dish. You use the the tablecloth as a napkin. And just knowing these little things, the way the culture works, makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I offer. I will be your cultural tour guide, showing you how things work in the world of medicine, so you avoid these marketing faux pas and you can really speak in a way that will help you be heard.
Yeah, I have another question here from Shirley. It says the same thing, basically. What's the best way to get in and talk to the doctor? So again, Shirley, we can't go into detail on that, but we have other webinars that are on our blog there on our website that specifically we cover exactly what we teach in this week. We don't hold anything back. We'll give you all the secrets of what we cover, although we can't go into the details on some of those other webinars, so be sure and look those up. Here's a question from Larkelia. Says, do all doctors have to accept Obamacare?
Oh, great question. So, I'm launching a revolution. I think this is really a time of reinvention. And in fact, my latest book, in addition to the one Patrick and I are working on, is called The New Medical Mindset, How Physicians Can Reinvent Themselves and Thrive in the Era of Obamacare. So what we know about doctors is doctors like being in control. Right now, they're distinctly not in control. They have no power over Medicare.
No.
None. But they do have power to opt out. And so there are viable business models, successful business models that Patrick and I were just talking about on the way over to his office that are options for doctors. The problem is that doctors don't even know about them. And it's going to take a while to get doctors familiar with this idea that there are really different ways to do things. I mean, if you think about it, when my mom was in her 20s, a doctor actually told her to start smoking because that would help her lose weight, which would help with her back pain. So a doctor prescribed tobacco.
Wow.
That sounds crazy right now.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we're going to see a similar change in the way that doctors and patients partner together. And I am out actively promoting this idea that doctors can reinvent themselves, do what they love to do, and get paid in different ways. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but, and by the way, I don't think that this kind of thing is going to change tomorrow. So I think that a career in medical billing is a perfectly secure career. But I think gradually we're going to see market forces shaping things. So for example, last year, almost 1 million Americans left to get their medical care abroad. It's called medical tourism. Why couldn't some enterprising physician be a destination and attract wealthy people from all over the world to come to their community and get their medical care from the expert? Right. So as we look into the future, I do think that our evolving technology really will be able to help doctors help many, many more people. When I was in my residency program, we had this little line, the whole world is pre-op, and I think that this is quite literally true for doctors now. Incidentally, there's a model that you might want to look at. There's a clinic in Canada called the Shouldice Clinic. They do one operation to repair a hernia, and they will take care of everything. They'll take care of the insurance billing. They'll take care of travel. So as the world gets bigger, your opportunities in medical billing could get bigger too.
Well, Dr. Rackner, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap this up today and tell a little bit about the next training class that we have. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate your insight. It's way beyond anything that I have heard in the past, and I want to let you know that we're going to be working very closely together this year to bring even more success to our licensees.
Well, thanks for the chance of reaching your community. And I know that you'll make good choices. You are important. You have a chance to make a big difference right now. So I hope you really take a look at this opportunity and move forward. This is the time.